Hi everyone, this is Brittany Kenney-Gysin and this is my week 5 video discussion. So this week we did a lot of reading about how our communication, how it goes and how people see it. So the first question that we were asked was gender conversation. So men versus women and like the way that we communicate. And it asked to give examples or observed, distinctions between the language that's being used. So the first thing that came to my mind was as a child, thinking about like how my parents would deal with like discipline or if we did something wrong or they needed to just teach us something, some kind of lesson in life. My dad, he was just always straight to the point. There wasn't really there wasn't anything. It was just, this is what you did, this is the punishment, these are the consequences. There really wasn't a ton of extra that was added into it. It wasn't really like a life lesson. It was just, this is what it is. Whereas my mom, yes, we would still get like a punishment or something, but there was like a lesson behind it, or some type of way that she would take that moment and nurture it into us in a way where we could see what was going on. She would tell us a story about her life, or she would connect it to why doing something that we did, could have consequences later in our life. And it was just, there was a lot more of that nurture side that was brought into the language of like how they dealt with us. And I catch myself doing that too with students at work. I'll hear like our behavioral specialist just to the point of what they did wrong, and how they how this like went against some kind of rule or something. And not that that's wrong in any kind of way, but I'll instantly feel myself wanting to be like, do you understand why this is wrong? Like, let me explain this more to you. uh, there's a lot more words that I catch myself using than the male counterpart would be using. And again, not that either one of them is wrong. It's just, it seems like we definitely do communicate in different kinds of ways. So I found that really interesting that it pointed out, the difference of how men and women communicate with others and just in general in life. Another question that we were asked this week was, in what ways can knowledge of high context and low context communication impact intercultural interactions and global communications? So mine wasn't necessarily like a global communication thought that came to my mind, but in my family, we get really excited to see each other. And that excitement turns a lot of our conversations into very loud, quick conversations. And I can remember when my husband first came into the family, he would be a little bit more reserved and quiet, and almost like he was overwhelmed by how quickly we talk, because we'll start talking and the next person will start talking over the other person, and it'll get louder and quicker, and then the next person will start talking even louder, and it's like the person with the loudest voice is the one that ends up keeping that communication going. And that's totally normal for us, and we don't see any disrespect to it. It's just how we talk with each other. And it's not always that we're like that, but most of the time we are. And it's really just like our way of being excited about talking with the other person. And, our whole family is like that. But other people on the outside, they, see that disrespectful, or they see that as, you're not taking the time to listen to one another. And my husband definitely felt that way and felt uncomfortable. And it's taken a long time for him to kind of pull back and see, oh, they're just excited, like this is what's really going on in this moment. And recently my sister, she brought her boyfriend into the family, and he's had to kind of go through this whole trial too of learning that yeah, we do know how to have a slower, more meaningful conversation, but our excitement and our joy to talk to each other leads to this over talking one another, and that's just how we communicate. um, so it's really different for other people to get to see that, and they can definitely get the wrong impression or idea of what's going on when it's completely something different. So this question really made me think about, the context, or, the way that we're talking can be totally misunderstood from others who maybe don't understand or know your dynamic within the group. Um, So I'm really enjoying the readings that we're doing this week. They've definitely been super informative and, really made me think a lot about my own life and the way that I see communication with others. Hope you guys are having a good week. Can't wait to hear more from you too. Thank you.